Good morning. What a blessing for us to be together this morning. I come today to celebrate the resurrection. Now, as Christians, the resurrection is central to our faith and our salvation. But there is another resurrection that we are celebrating today. And by that I mean the resurrection and the restoration of the unshakable, of the unalterable, of the ironclad friendship between the United States and the State of Israel. We stand here this morning surrounded by prayer warriors. We stand here this morning surrounded by men and women who begin each day on your knees, lifting up our nation, lifting up the people of Israel, lifting up your brothers and sisters. And we would be remiss if we did not at least pause and reflect what a difference a couple of years can make. What a difference Ambassador Nikki Haley makes. What a difference Ambassador David Friedman makes. You know, it was just November and December of 2016, the end of the previous administration, when we saw the United Nations passing Resolution 2334, condemning, with the voice of the international community, condemning Israel as illegal occupiers, declaring the Jewish quarter of Israel illegally occupied, declaring the Western Wall illegally occupied, done with the acquiescence and energetic support of the Obama administration. It was only a year and a half ago we had the Secretary of State, John Kerry, describing Israel as an apartheid state. It was only a couple of years ago that we had members of Congress boycotting Prime Minister Netanyahu as he addressed a joint session of Congress. But oh, how the world has changed. This has been a year of celebration. Just a few months ago, I was so incredibly privileged, so incredibly humbled to be in Jerusalem for the opening of the United States Embassy. Many of you were there on the 70th anniversary of the creation of the modern state of Israel. As we stood there dedicating that embassy, fulfilling a promise that we had seen presidents of both parties make. We'd seen Republicans make that promise, we'd seen Democrats make that promise, and yet when it came time for action, neither one followed through. But this year, America did follow through. I'll tell you the joy of being in Jerusalem, visiting with Israelis, visiting with Americans, particularly those of the generation that went through the Holocaust. The survivors that were still there, that you would visit with tears in their eyes, as they would look at you and say, I never, ever, ever thought this day would come. Now, I'll tell you, the decision to move the embassy was a perilous debate. Within the Trump administration, it divided the administration. Within the administration, you had certain voices at state, at defense, that argued, if we move the embassy, it will be provocative. If we move the embassy, the enemies of Israel will be unhappy. As compared to their usual state of happiness. And for a year and a half, a great battle waged within the administration as I and many other voices made the case to the president, this is the right thing to do. Every other nation on earth, our embassy is not in some other city, it's not in some other place, it is in the capital place. And in Israel, the capital place is the one and undivided and eternal city of Jerusalem. But the argument on the other side was that, well, this may make it harder to achieve peace. Now listen, every one of us longs to see peace in the Middle East. But what the men and women here gathered to understand is that the obstacle to peace is not the people of Israel. Nobody wants peace more than the men and women of Israel, because it is their babies who are being murdered as a result of the war. But I do not believe we will have peace so long as the Palestinian leadership, number one, refuses to acknowledge Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. And number two, continues to embrace terrorism as a public policy to be advanced. With those preconditions in place, peace, I believe, is impossible until those are changed. But I'll tell you the case that I made to the president and the administration is I said, look, whatever the chances of peace are in the near term, in my view, moving the embassy increases the chances of peace. Why is that? Because it will be seen by our friends and our enemies alike as saying that America stands with Israel, period, the end. And what I encouraged the president, I said, you know, when we move the embassy, we can expect our Arab allies to disagree. We can expect them to disagree loudly. We can expect that they will believe for domestic political reasons that they have to do so. But at the same time, what I argued is I said, I believe quietly they will be deeply, deeply relieved. Because what I believe the Egyptians and the Saudis and the Jordanians will say when we move the embassy is, you know, a president and an American administration with enough backbone to move the embassy may well also have enough backbone to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. You know, I've joked retroactively, Barack Obama may well have deserved the Nobel Peace Prize because he managed to do something that nobody had been able to do for millennia, which is unify the Arabs and the Israelis. All you had to do is talk about giving the Iranians nuclear weapons. And suddenly everyone else said, "Are you out of your mind?" So that day of celebration when we opened the embassy was a new page in history. And I do not believe it was coincidental that that very same week we opened the embassy is the very same week that the United States finally withdrew from the disastrous Obama-Iranian nuclear deal. That, too, was a major battle within the administration. Indeed, the battle lines were much the same. State and defense, the same forces that were saying, don't move the embassy, were the forces saying, we got to keep the deal. And the same forces on the other side were making the case directly to the president that this deal is a disaster, that there is no greater threat to the safety and security of the United States of America, and there is no greater threat to the safety and security of Israel than the Ayatollah Khamenei with nuclear weapons. You know, I'm reminded of a political cartoon I saw some years ago. Had a picture of the Ayatollah saying, "Death to America!" And it had John Kerry responding saying, "Can I meet you halfway?" The reason for the threat is simple. When a religious zealot and extremist, when the Ayatollah stands and leads the mobs in chanting death to America and death to Israel, I believe him. I don't think those are simply empty rhetorics. I don't think he's simply looking for something else to put on the next bumper sticker. You know, the so-called father of the Iranian nuclear program, a nuclear scientist who has since gone to meet his maker, some say with an expedited trip provided by the Mossad, he had written into his last will and testament the following. He said when he died, he wished to be written on his tombstone, "Here lies a man who sought the annihilation of Israel." I want you to think for a second about the deep, bilious hatred, the loathing, the rage that your entire life, everything you've done on this planet, you wish to be summed up. You want to be remembered for eternity for one thing: hatred of the Jews. When the Ayatollah chants death to America and death to Israel, when he describes Israel as the little Satan and America as the great Satan, if history teaches us anything, it is that when somebody tells you they want to kill you, believe them. And the shift we've seen in the Middle East when the Obama-Iran deal was signed, $150 billion flowing in to the Ayatollah and the mullahs, because what bad could happen with Ayatollahs with billions of dollars? You'll recall $1.7 billion flown in the dead of night on pallets of unmarked cash. By the way, you know, there's a legal term for that. That's called indicia of wrongdoing. Let me give you another example. Let's suppose you were selling your house, and I came to buy your house, and we went to the closing, and I said, you know what? I don't have a mortgage company. I don't even have a cashier's check to buy your house. I've got in the trunk 2 duffel bags of rolled up $20 bills with rubber bands around them. Now, would that maybe raise some red flags on your part? Who exactly is this guy, and why are we meeting again at 2 in the morning behind the Circle K? Well, that's essentially what the Obama-Iran deal was. We'll meet you behind the Circle K with $1.7 billion in unmarked cash. And what happens when you give terrorists billions of dollars? All right, here's a crazy concept. They use those billions of dollars to kill people. And we've seen the last couple of years Iran getting more and more aggressive. We've seen Iran moving Iranian soldiers into Syria. We've seen Iran sending drones into Israel. We've seen Iran funding radical Islamic in Yemen, throughout Africa, throughout the Middle East, even throughout Latin America. But what a difference cutting off the cash makes. And I, for one, am thankful that we have a president and an administration who understands a simple and powerful truth, that Israel is our friend. And that the Ayatollah Khamenei should never, ever, ever be allowed to have nuclear weapons, that they will stop or we will stop them. There are battles that will continue. There are battles against BDS. There are battles against human shields, including the legislation I'm introducing this week to go against human shields. These battles will continue for some time, but I want this morning for us just to take a moment and pause and reflect and say, thank you, God. Thank you for the tremendous improvement we have seen, and thank you for the faithfulness of the brothers and sisters gathered here who pray for Israel, who pray for America, and who lift us up. God bless you. At Passover every year, we say next year in Jerusalem. Well, I am so happy to be able to say this year in Jerusalem. God bless you.